Hello, my name is Jeff Hogan, and welcome back to another Draft a Day video. As we open up our first pack here in the 665 draft, this first pack's actually kind of mediocre. There is actual zero removal in this pack, and the uncommons and the rares aren't particularly impressive. We have Parallel Realities for the rare. Target troop you control gets, when this attacks, summon a copy of this, then revert this. This card's okay. It's probably the pick out of here, but it's kind of susceptible to removal, but I guess it usually generates one piece of value. It can run away with the game if your opponent doesn't have an answer to it, so I guess that makes it reasonable enough. Callous Carvers, another kind of reasonably powerful card. Diligence, the next turn this gets +4 power and life drain, so turns into a 5/5 life drain. Honestly, it's probably the Parallel Realities. If there was a quality piece of removal in this pack, like a Strangle or a Decree of Banishing or a Chastise or a Shackling Strands, I'd probably take that over the Parallel Realities, but there just aren't any other good cards in that pack, really. This pack, the Memorial is still here for a reason. It's a resource that gives you a charge in 1/1, and then if you have a Valorous Troop, it creates another Valor for you. That's not particularly good. This pack, there are two different cards that jump out at me. Three, I guess, technically. Don't mind the Wakuna coins here. If we had a diamond card already, I'd probably take that out of this pack. That being said, there's a cheap shot in this pack that's like okay removal, and there's also this Windborn Ascension. Windborn Ascension is pretty reasonable. It conscripts an Underworld Trooper cost 3 and then gives it flight. So I think I'm leaning towards taking the Windborn Ascension. Not only does it keep us in with this Parallel Realities that we already have here, but it's basically the only good Sapphire card in this pack. Sweep Away is like playable, but not particularly good. So I'm going to go ahead and pick that up. And that allows us to kind of send the message that you probably shouldn't be in our Sapphire to the person we are passing to. Alright, in this pack, if we wanted to stick on Sapphire, we have a Skittering Cultivator here. It's a very reasonable 2-drop. It's a 1/4 for 2 that diligences to summon two Dreadlings for us. I don't think there's anything in this pack that really makes me want to pivot into a second shard. If I was already in Ruby or Wild, I would pick up the Surging Wildfire. You know, honestly, maybe I'm supposed to pick this up and just like kind of get a feel for how else the pack is and maybe move into that as opposed to these Sapphire cards. Although I guess both of these are playable, so it'd be kind of sad to move out of those. It's kind of tough to like end up in Ruby Wild in this format too, and there's like another reasonable Ruby card in this pack, so I'm not sure that I really want to send that message, and taking this continues to cut Sapphire, so that's probably the correct choice. In this pack, again, we've got another Skittering Cultivator here. Hopefully we find some Cloudbounders to go along with these guys, so I'm just going to go ahead and pick this up. If we had moved into Ruby Wild off that Surging Wildfire, Flame Guard's a very reasonable pickup, just a quality 2-drop Ruby card, 3/1 with Diligence. Target opposing troop can't block the next turn, so especially when you play this turn 2 on the play, if you attack with it the first time, and then your opponent plays a blocker, like Diligence is to make that blocker no good, and then they have to start like leaving back multiple troops so to block your one guy. Waiting for the next pack. We're solidly into Sapphire here at this point. Glad we picked up that other Skittering Cultivator. And we get another pack here that has one single good Sapphire card in it. So we're just going to keep getting these, and we should get a reasonable amount of good Sapphire in the next pack for sure now that we've cut this hard. So this is a 2/1 for 2 that deploy each opposing champion loses a charge and you gain a charge here. We're actually kind of setting up to potentially have a pretty good Theros deck possibly. With the, we've got 2 Dreadling producers here already, so I'm definitely taking the Webborn Apostate out of here, but if we end up moving into Dreadlings, we wouldn't mind this Dread deployment wheeling around for us. Yeah, I swear, the Sapphire, I didn't choose the Sapphire Draft Life. The Sapphire Draft Life has chosen me, folks. And we saw, last week I didn't draft Mono Sapphire decks, but this, we're going back to my wily ways here. This pack, I don't know that any of these cards make me want to commit to a second Threshold at this point. I'd probably play the Sweep Away in the deck, and some people play Dingle in this form, but I really don't like that, so I think this is the only reasonable Sapphire card in this pack, which is probably a reason to pick it up here. Mindrak Sorcerer is like an okay blood card, but I think I'd rather pick up the Sweep Away, just kind of, I like to ideally stay open to a second shard moving into the second pack, so that way, if we open a bomb of another shard, we can still play that and move into that from there. So, in this pack, we don't have anything too exciting. We got the Flash Paw Trickster here, a 4/2 for 4 with Flash that deploys to gain a charge. If we're playing Theros, this is not an Underworld Troop, so it really doesn't help us with that. I guess if we're playing Theros, we could possibly end up in Sapphire Wild Dreadling, so maybe I'm going to go ahead and grab this Arcane Soil speculatively and see how that goes from there. This is by no means a commitment to Wild, but so far we've got a bunch of Underworld Troops, and we've got you know, some Dreadling producers, so it seems like Theros could definitely be on the table is what we're doing with this deck. And it's not an archetype I've really drafted too much, so kind of excited to give that a try. As far as this pack goes, if we end up in Dreadlings, Web Spinner Prelate is a fine card. Spiders you control have Rage 1. Yeah, I think I'm actually going to go ahead and pick up the Web Spinner Prelate here. Tale of Insight's kind of mediocre. It's like okay with our Skittering Cultivators when they can be attacking it early, but we don't have any evasive flying threats really, so if we end up in Blood Wild or Blood Sapphire, this is definitely a card we're going to be reasonable to play a lot of the time. As far as this pack is concerned, this is our first pack we opened that was pretty aggressively mediocre, and it continues to be aggressively mediocre as we get passed back to us. I'm going to go ahead and pick up the Eldritch Shriek here, because just in case we end up getting a bunch of Shrieks and then we get some Whispers in pack 3, it could be plenty reasonable. Who's here? Is your mom home? In this pack, we don't have anything too particularly exciting. There's a Furious Smasher here that's like kinda on shard for us, but we're probably not going to end up playing it. I guess I'll sneak a Turbulence here just in case we end up in Sapphire Wild, and that's a playable reserves card. In this pack, there's, again, nothing too exciting here. Sapphire's Favor is, like, okay. I guess Giant Centipede's pretty good if we end up in Blood Sapphire Dreadling, so I'll go ahead and pick that up. Not 100% sure which direction we're going exactly here yet, though, so I'm not going to hide any of these cards just yet, because they're all, these feel like all reasonable main deck cards depending on which direction our draft ends up going. I'm probably going to solidify which of our 2 secondary shards we want moving into the third pack here, or the second pack, sorry. We're 11 cards into this one, so I wouldn't be too surprised if we don't see too many more playables at this point. I actually think Jurassic Spark's kind of playable if you end up in Sapphire Wild Dreadlings. Like, it reverts and transforms a card into a 6/6, so it can just, like, upgrade a Dreadling into a 6/6. So, you know, maybe. Maybe. Hide those. I think I like the blood a little bit more. We'll see. And we're kind of going to try and stay open here. There's a Potent Puffball, though. When this attacks Shrimpin, you control get +2 power this turn. So, yeah, just, you know, I'm just going to leave those up, like I said, for now. Spark's kind of mediocre, I think, even with the Dreadling deck, but we'll see exactly how many playables and stuff we end up in, what direction we end up taking. I'm going to grab the Smasher for now, but, you know, ideally, like I said, we're not playing that card. The X ones are pretty mediocre in this format, just like a lot of things with 1 power, and especially there's a number of Swift Strike cards as well, so... Another Jurassic Spark, because that card's not particularly good. I suppose if we ended up in... Now we just want to play Theros. Theros is just like so good. The fact that Theros is only 6 charges and he helps enable getting additional charges as you play Underworld Troops is just so insane. And this card in Theros is just super nutty. Just like gives you 2 charges. Bombs? Hey! Alright, so we got a Mystic Naturalist here. Never passed a Mystic Naturalist in my life. Not about to start now. This pack, we would love it if Web Scribe or Cheap Shot or even the Tomb Swap probably come back around to us, but 10 out of 10 taking the Mystic Naturalist. 2/4 for 4 with Flight, Diligence, summon a Mystic Bluebird. Fantastic card in this format. Must answer game-winning bombs, so snap that right on up there. If we see something like an Underworld Officer or maybe another Arcane Soil, that could really cement what our Splash Shard's going to be. Another Arcane Soil pretty much pushes us into Wild, and Underworld Officer, 10 out of 10 going to play that super powerful uncommon. It would solidify us into Sapphire Blood. Okay, this pack's got a lot of reasonable stuff in it here. So we got a Jorgen's Workshop, which is a pretty good uncommon. At the start of your turn, summon a Dreadling for each different race among Underworld troops you control. We don't really have that many races of Underworld troops, do we? I've got 3 Venin here, and another Venin, and yeah, that's a lot of Venin and not a lot of anything else. I think I'm just going to grab the Skittering Cultivator here. It's just like another reasonable 1/4 for 2. There's a Decree of Banishing here, but we're definitely not in Diamond at this point. Shoku Garden's like okay, but I'm pretty sure it's much worse than Skittering Cultivator on average. So yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and grab the Skittering Cultivator here. And still haven't found anything that makes us want to move in one direction or the other 30-second splash. So we're just going to keep focusing on the Mono Sapphire cards and kind of wait to get a feel for, we might not even move into a 3rd shard until the last pack even. Alright, in this pack we have a few different directions this pack could go. We have a Web Scribe here, which is a Necrotic, so if that Jorgen's Workshop wheeled by some miracle, give us another Underworld troop. This is also pretty good with Theros, because it says whenever you gain a charge, target opposing troop gets -2 power till the start of your next turn, and Theros is going to enable us to gain some extra charges throughout the course of the game. Vigilant Duskwing is a very reasonable 5-drop at the top end. At the start of each opposing champion's turn, ready this. I think I'm going to go ahead and... I kind of want, this deck kind of lacks bombs at the top end right now, so I think I'm actually going to go ahead and pick up the Vigilant Duskwing here. We already have 4 2-drops, so yeah, I'm going to go ahead and grab this. Would be pretty happy if the Web Scribe or the Shadowblade Splicer wheeled back around to us, but I think Duskwing is definitely the pickup based on what we already have going on in our deck here. We got 13 cards in our pool here right now, but remember, 2 of them are, we've got 4 cards that are off shards that we're not 100% in just yet. Man, another Skittering Cultivator. Yeah, just 10 out of 10. Let's just get all the cultivators up in here. There's a Sky Spire Scholar in this pack too, but honestly, I think we want to just like focus on our Dreadlings here. Make our Prelate or our Potent Puffball extra goody good. We have all of the 1/4 Venin at our disposal. There's an Emperor Shrine here that says, gain a charge if there are 3 or more troops in your crypt, you gain a temporary resource. That could be okay. I think I'm actually going to grab the Bloodbearer here out of this pack, though. Whenever a troop you control dies, you gain a life. That's pretty good with our with our Skittering Cultivators, it makes Skittering Cultivator not only attack for 3 every turn, but also gain 2 life, so it just makes it very difficult for your opponent to be bracing most of the time. Ideally, we'd probably like another payoff card or 2 for our Dreadling producers that we have so far. I think I'm leaning towards the blood at this point, so I'm going to hide this Puffball and this Arcane Soil. It also helps our curve a little bit to have 1 less 5-drop in it, which is nice. And we're at 13 playables, about halfway through pack 2, so... and then we get past a coin here, Necropolis coin, which is now guaranteed on shard for us. There's a Zenthal's Hunger in this pack as well. If we're really fortunate, this will wheel back around to us, but I think I want to prioritize taking the coin here. You know, usually have more than enough playables in this format, so upgrading a resource to a coin is pretty big game. Especially this is one of the better coins in the format, I think. And immediately we get past another on-shard coin here. So yep, I'm just going to go ahead and grab that one as well. I actually wouldn't mind having the Arachnid in this deck since we've got a Web Spinner Prelate already. Spiders you control have Rage 1 and that's a 2/4 spider. But I think I'd rather take the coin yet again. Actually, I really wouldn't mind seeing, you know, another one of these along with a glider or 2. In this pack, okay, we have a Skyspire Scholar here, but we're a little bit light on removal, and by that I mean we actually don't have any in this pack, in this deck yet. There's a Magnetize here, which target opposing troop gets -2 power for each artifact in your crypt. It's really efficient kind of card. We only have 4 Dreadling producers, so it might be a little bit medium. I think I'm going to snake the Skyspire Scholar for now. Get a little bit of card velocity going in our deck, a 0/6 that can draw 2 cards. I'm going to grab another Giant Centipede here, I think. It's really pretty good with the Skittering Cultivators, honestly. Turns our Dreadlings from 1 power into 2 when our opponent doesn't have good blocks, basically. So we have 15 playables right now. It's not too bad. We have a lot of 2-drops. This deck's gearing up to be fairly aggressive, so Thera should be reasonably impressive in it. Still base Sapphire with the Blood Splash here. The Bulky Biospore is like an okay card at the top end of this deck. When you sacrifice a troop, this deals 1 damage to each opposing champion. The problem is you have to have a sacrifice outlet for it. I guess we do have sacrifice outlets in Giant Centipede, huh? Yeah, okay. I have 2 sack outlets. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and grab the Biospore. I think one of these... We don't have too many bombs at our top end, so, like, having one of these seems fine, especially with the 2 Giant Centipedes, so... Sign me up. Let's give him a fair shake. The fairest of shakes. Man, Wakuna coins came all the way back around to here. We're not going to play any of the cards in this pack, so I'm just going to cut this coin and make someone who's hoping it wheels kind of sad. Easily the most playable card in that pack. The Flashball Trickster's really only good in the Ruby Sapphire Charges Matters deck. This pack doesn't have anything very interesting or powerful in it either. I guess I'll grab a Barrier Bot. This card has Skyguard and Defensive, so occasionally it's fine to board in against like Ada decks. And we're up to 16 playables in this pack already, so we only need like 6 more out of the next pack, so we're pretty well set up here. Ideally, we'd love to pick up some removal in this deck pack because we're a little bit light on that right now, but hopefully like our sweep aways at our aggressive stance are being kind of aggressive can help us push through. And pretty successful with the Ruby Blood deck that didn't have, or what was it, no, the Ruby Blood deck had a bunch of removal in it. I had a deck the other day that didn't have much removal and it ended up being okay. None of these cards are particularly exciting. This card gains, becomes invincible when you conscript an Underworld troop. Important to note, it says Underworld only, definitely conscripted an Ardent troop in my time, expecting that to become invincible, and then was very, very sad when it died. Hey, look at that, it's a Spooter. Unfortunately, we're only going to have one Web Spinner Prelate here, which is sad, but this might be playable. We'll see. If the quality of our third pack is good, this Amphibious Erected's probably going to get cut, but for now, it can hang out right there. All of the barrier bots belong to us. The barrier bots, they are ours. Alright, bombs, bombs, bombs. I guess this is kind of a bomb, right? The first non-resource card you play each turn is free. Costs 7 to play, so in limited, this card actually isn't very good. It requires you to have sufficient resources to play, so by the time you can play it, you don't need your first card to be free every turn. I'm going to go ahead and grab this Cruel Venom Blade. It's a 2/1 lethal for 3 that can scrounge 2 to get +3/+3, so a single Diligence activation from the Skittering Cultivator makes the Cruel Venom Blade into a 5/4, which is pretty good for us. I'm going to hide this Arachnid from now in the hopes that we just don't need to play it. And we can even, like, yeah. Yep. Venom Blade, very reasonable. It's another Underworld troop as well, so we've got 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 Underworld troops, so definitely a Theros deck. This card's like pseudo removal as well. It can like make your opponent not be able to attack with their larger troops because it has lethal when you play it out, even just as a 2/1. Alright, as far as this pack is concerned, what do we have going on here? Wow. This pack's really good for us. There's a Siege Engine Gemini as a really powerful assault payoff for the Dreadlings that we're producing. There's a Jet Cadet here, which is just a 2/1. Troops without flight can't block this. There's a Dread Botanist here, which is a reasonable enabler for us, in addition to being an Underworld troop. I think I'm supposed to take the Dread Factory here. We have 4 Skittering Cultivators plus a Mystic Naturalist, so like this being able to just enable Diligence on command for us is really, really powerful. Hopefully the Botanist, the Jet Cadet, or the Siege Engine wheel. I'm not going to be surprised when the Siege Engine to come back around, but I think getting the Botanist or the Jet Cadet back isn't completely unreasonable. Every time I've drafted the Siege Engine Gemini before, I think I've had it on 2 occasions. Most of the time, by the time I play it out, I've mostly won the game anyways, because like we were attacking enough to make it cheap. So we have 2 different directions we could go here. I don't think I think our deck's a little bit too aggressive for Astral Sight to be reasonable. As much as I would love to draw 3 and gain 3 charges, there's a Cavern Sentry here, which says whenever you play an Underworld trip, you get to summon a Dreadling. That's such a tough call. I'm gonna take the Astral Sight. I don't think there's a deck in this game that doesn't want to draw 3 cards. And like gaining 3 charges is half a Theros activation anyway, so you know, I could very easily see it being correct to have stacked up the dwarf there, but the Dwarf Bite wheel, honestly, and this card's very powerful. We don't have that much top end right now either. So we're up to 19 playables right now, so we need 3 more out of this pack. Would love a piece of removal or 2. Exporsion would be great. Removal that also makes Dreadlings. This pack doesn't... Oh, speaking of removal, there's a Broodnet. This is soft removal. Exhaust target troop. It gets at the start of your turn if this has 3 power or less to re-exhaust it. So it gets a big thing out of the way for a turn, or just permanently gets a little thing out of the way. So 10 out of 10. Happy to pick up a Broodnet there. Let's get past an Exporsion deck, so that'd be pretty happy with our deck. Shaping up moderately well. Get some Gatorade, kiddo. Alright, A few different things that are okay in this pack. We've got a Misery here, which is like a reasonable board card. I don't think we'd ever main deck this, but there's also an Upgrade Technician here, which summons 2 Dreadlings when it comes into play. It's an Underworld troop for Theros, and it can socket to put the Dreadling, pay to make a Dreadling in it. So I think that's very reasonable in this deck. You know, like, you know, our Skittery Cultivator readies, Dread Factory, put this out for, you know, 6 Dreadlings, and then smash. Huh. Parallel Realities and Upgrade Technician is actually kind of cool, too. Oh, I guess it's kind of a non-bow, right? Because it, like, it'll revert this so it gets its original gem back, but, like, the Dreadlings, the new one put into play, won't be attacking because attackers have already been declared. It's kind of an awkward interaction. This pack, we have a Jet Cadet that's pretty reasonable. We also have a Brood Net here. I think my deck's light enough on removal that I need to prioritize taking the Brood Net. I would like the Evasive Threat, but again, I basically don't have any removal right now other than this first Brood Net, so pretty happy to pick up a second one there. And now we're at 22 playables here, so anything we grab at this point, we're basically going to have to cut something for. This bulky Biospore might be the cut if we get another playable card that's lower on the curve. Don't want too many things to clunk up the top end. And I think the Astral Sight is better than the Biospore on average. This pack doesn't have anything too exciting in it. We talked about being light on removals, so maybe I'm going to draft this Spoil just in case we run into a deck that is particularly good against, but I don't think it's good enough in the context of this format in general to be worth playing in the main. I could see an argument being made for this Frostbite being reasonable. Stun up to 2 target troops. We're kind of heavy on Sapphire anyways, and we're probably going to play 10 Sapphire and 8 Blood in this deck. I think we'll get more mileage out of the Spoil boarding it in once or twice than a Frostbite that I probably don't even have room for in the main deck. Wow, that's good. So we've got a Mechanized Aerialist here. Assault, whenever a troop you control attacks with this in your hand, it gets -1 cost. So 10 out of 10, picking that up and cutting this bulky Biospore. We've got plenty of Dreadlings to make this cheaper. So this is going to come down to turn 4 a lot of the time for us for a very, very cheap cost. Good thing for the Dreadlings to enable. This pack doesn't have anything particularly interesting in it. I guess I'll pick up the Frostbite maybe if we've come across an opponent that's mostly got just a couple of threats instead of going wide. That card could be reasonable, but again, I think we're pretty well set on our main deck here. The two Brood Nets rounded off the deck pretty nicely. Would you like to come sit on Dad's lap while he finishes out his draft? Hi, Jacob. Say hello to the Draft Today audience. Toddler power. Oh, you're a preschooler now? You're not a toddler anymore? Big giant kid? And hey, look, the Jet Cadet in this pack wheeled back around to us. We're going to go ahead and pick that right on up there. I'm pretty sure I want to play this Jet Cadet in the main deck. The question at that point becomes, what am I supposed to cut? Honestly, this Astral Sight's probably supposed to go. It's a little clunky and kind of goes against, like, what our deck is trying to accomplish, I feel like. Drags the curve down a little bit, too, which is nice. Means we can cycle our coins touch more aggressively. Nothing very good in this pack at all. I guess I'll grab the Prejudice in case we come into something that's particularly grindy, but I don't think this card's very playable. The cost of this card kind of makes me wonder, like, I feel like I wouldn't really want to play this card even as a 3 cost, so I wonder what this card, maybe as a 2 cost I would play that card. In 2 cost it might even be playable and constructed. Oh no, what's wrong? Oh no, we're at the end of the pack and all the cards are poop? All the cards are poop! Take that poop card and that. You want some water? No. It's worse than the Gatorade? I agree. Gatorade's got electrolytes. It's what your body craves. Waylay might be an okay interrupt target card that costs 1 or less. We might have enough assault cards that this is reasonable. And it's possible that, like, I've dragged my curve down enough at this point that I could argue playing 17 shards is okay. But at the same time, I really want to hit, like, 3 and 4 pretty consistently. Huh. Yeah, I don't think Waylay's good enough to play over the 18th resource. I think especially with 2 coins, every time I've never played 18 resources in a deck that less than 18 resource deck that has 2 coins in it. Like, if you have 2 coins, you should be playing them, because if you're flooding a little bit anyways, you can just what was I say? You could just, you know, cycle them in the mid to late game. It's like they weren't resources at all. You wiggling out of my lap here? Yeah. Got our last card. Alrighty, so what are we doing with the resources here? We have 1 socketed card here that we're gonna go ahead and put the Dreadling gem in. Yes, I see your show. You got your Mizumis? Hi. Oh, kids. Alright, so check there. Need some cards. So we're gonna go 10 sapphire, so we need 9 sapphire shards, and then 8 or 7 blood. Yep, that gives us 40. This is going to be a Theros deck, 24 health. Whenever you play an Underworld troop, gain a charge. 6 charges, troops you control get +1/+1 this turn. Yep, valid for the current format. As always, my name is Jeff Hoagland. Thanks for watching my Draft Today video. Remember, if you liked today's video, to like it on YouTube and share it on your social media. And you can also support my content by supporting my sponsors. You can check out hexprimal.com for all of your Hex CCG single needs. If you use the code Jeff5 at checkout, you'll save 5% on your order while also supporting my content here. You can also support my content directly by subscribing on Twitch for $4.99 a month or becoming a patron on Patreon. Thanks, everyone, for watching. I'll be back again tomorrow with another Draft Today.